Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley here for Pinkfresh Studio. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing how I created this gorgeous floral theme card, and I'm also going to share how you can get perfectly placed hot foil sentiments on a piece of cardstock so that when you're working with a sentiment set like the new Wonderful Sentiments, you can place it exactly where you want it on your card. Now for this floral bunch, I am using the Today is Special stencil set, and I'm going to use the stencil set just on its own. But I'm going to use my Misty stamping tool to help me line up each of these stencils in that lower left-hand corner. And because I'm making sure that I'm lining up my cardstock and my stencil in the same corner every time, when I switch between stencils, those stencil layers are going to line up perfectly. So I don't have to use any of the hash marks that are included on it. And I'm not using the stamp set with this, but keep in mind there is a coordinating stamp that will place all of those detail lines in there as well. Now for stencil number 1, I used Coral Reef, of course, one of my Pinkfresh all-time favorite ink colors. And then I'm moving into one of my second favorite ink colors, and that would have to be Peach Fuzz. Now you noticed I had the back of my stencil packaging earlier. I showed it to you. I'm keeping that off to the side of my work surface so that I can use it as a guide for what each stencil is coloring. It just kind of helps guide me through the stenciling until I'm a little more familiar with the stencil set. For the second stencil, as I mentioned before, I'm just blending on a light layer of Peach Fuzz. And as I mentioned before, each time I place a new stencil into my Misty stamping tool, I'm just making sure that my cardstock and my stencil are both secure in that lower left-hand corner. And that's going to mean I have perfectly lined up images every time. Now I'm moving on to stencil number 3, and I'm going to speed things up a little bit here because I wanted you to see all of the inks that I'm using and the stenciling that I'm doing, but I didn't necessarily want you to have to watch it in real time because I'm not doing anything super special with it. I'm just laying my stencils down and adding color. So for layer number 3, I used Passion Fruit. For layer number 4, which is the start of the greenery, I used Meadow. Then for layer number 5, I'm using Mermaid Cove. You can see that I'm wiping down my stencils after I use them to make the cleanup process a little easier. For the next layer, I'm using Tidal Pond. So I'm kind of mixing the greens and the aquas together for this greenery combination. And for the final stencil, which adds some details into these florals, I'm using Apricot, Passion Fruit, and Candy Apple, and I'm just being very careful where I place the color down. And for the big reveal, look at this floral image. I think it is absolutely gorgeous. Now, I'm not going to do any stamping on this. I'm just going to use it stencil only, which I think is a beautiful way to use this set. And I'm lining up the coordinating die and running that through my die cut machine. And now I have this gorgeous floral bundle. I love the mixes of the pinks and the corals and that light peach fuzz along with the aquas on this card. It's very Rifle Paper Company, which if you know me, I love Rifle Paper Co. And I am going to just layer it up on a couple of pieces of colored cardstock. Now I have this Take Care sentiment. It is one of the brand new Wonderful Sentiments hot foil plate. It's also available in a stamp set, but sometimes these sentiments can be a little tricky to line up. So you can see I'm positioning it where I want it on my cardstock, and I'm using a piece of the Spellbinder's Best Ever Craft Tape to hold this in place and create a hinge. That's going to allow me to fold this hot foil plate back onto that tape hinge that I've created and add my foil underneath. Now, if the foil was between the hot foil plate and the cardstock when I'm positioning it, I can't really tell where the lines of the hot foil plate are going to end up on that cardstock. So by creating this hinge, it allows me to then fold it back, place my foil, and get this hot foil plate exactly where I want it on this cardstock. So now that I know my position is perfect, I'm going to go ahead and put this on the platform of my Gemini foil press, allow it to heat up. When it's heated, I'm going to run that through my Gemini Junior, and that's going to press this hot foil onto this cardstock. Now you're going to notice I did have a little bit of overfoiling on this particular sentiment. I don't get a lot of overfoiling, but what I have found is that some of it actually comes off with just a gentle buffing of a microfiber cloth. And if it's a little bit more stubborn than that, I just take a mono sand eraser and I lightly buff away that excess foil. You don't want to go too hard and too fast here. You will pill up your cardstock and you won't be happy with the results. But if you're gentle with it, it'll come right off because it's not really pressed into the cardstock. It's just kind of hovering there on the surface. Now I also use the Today's Special die set to die cut 3 layers of plain white cardstock and a layer of some gold cardstock. And I'm going to layer these up behind that stenciled piece. I'm going to offset the gold piece to create kind of a gold shadow outline on this. So you can see I'm just adding some liquid glue and then just slightly offsetting that. And then the 3 additional white cardstock pieces will be placed behind this grouping to give it a little bit of dimension and kind of lift it off the front of the cardstock. Now, if you would prefer, you could definitely use some foam adhesive instead, but I think this is such a great way to add dimension and really give this a very solid feel on the front of the card. Now, once I get that all stacked up, then I'm going to take some gold sparkle twine and I'm going to tie it on this smaller piece of aqua cardstock. And I'm just going to make a little bow. I thought this was a fun addition to this card because it is a rather simple card overall. I contemplated adding some gold splatter in the background, which I think would be a fun idea as well. But I decided to just keep this really simple and allow that beautiful foil sentiment and that gorgeous floral cluster to just really take center stage and keep this very clean and simple. Now I'm adding some foam adhesive on the back of the smaller aqua piece of cardstock to kind of lift it off of the card front. And then I'm going to add my floral cluster onto this piece, going right over that twine with some liquid glue. And what I did to make sure that it made good contact is I just placed a large acrylic block over the top of it and let it kind of set up and dry. Now this piece of darker teal cardstock, I'm going to place that onto a top folding A2 size note card using some tape runner adhesive. This might be a side folding now that I think about it. And then I can remove the backer from the foam adhesive and place that onto my card. I finished my card off by adding just a few metallic gold pearls from Pinkfresh Studio onto my card, just kind of sprinkled about. And I added those on with some liquid glue. And that finishes off my card for today. A very beautiful, elegant card. This would be a perfect get well card or just a card to let someone know you're thinking of them. But you can see I have that foil sentiment in the perfect position. And that's all because I was able to use that hinge method with a piece of tape and kind of really make sure I had my positioning dialed in. Now, as always, you will find links to the featured products used in this project in the description at YouTube. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there. As always, I want to thank you for stopping by and hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here on this YouTube channel so you don't miss any of the fabulous paper crafting and card making video tutorials shared here. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.